right. Well, this is the story of Miri's birth. She's really cute. The afternoon before, I started having some little contractions, and I thought they were just like normal, like they were a little like they felt different than Gaskin Hicks, but they were not, serious, and they were really spread out, and they stopped like when I would sit down. I would, get up to get something, and then I would feel like I need to sit down. And by the evening, they had really spaced out so far that I thought they were gone. So I thought that was just that. It was just a little bit of, 2 weeks prior kind of pre-labor thing. And then, at about 3 or 3:30 in the morning, Akiva was in bed with us, and I woke up realizing that I had been having contractions, because at one point Akiva's foot was right pressing against the small of my back, and it felt really good. And I was like, I was like, okay, so these are contractions, and I realized that they were closer together than they had been earlier in the day. And then Akiva woke up and asked Barry to get him milk, and I said, Barry, I think that maybe we should time these contractions. So he started timing them, just looking at the clock, and they were really mild, and Akiva was all excited. And the thing was that it just kept going. So eventually we turned on the light, and Barry went and got his phone to really time them seriously. And Akiva was really excited, because he never gets to wake up in the middle of the night and be awake with us, be part of the excitement. And then they got a little harder and a little harder, so that Barry would, I asked them to be quiet while they were happening. Barry was having to keep Akiva quiet and give him activities and stuff, but it was still all okay. So I started getting on my hands and knees and stuff like that during them, but they were still, there was like plenty of time in between them. And they were pretty short, so I would know that it was going to end, and then I would have time to do something. And what I did, pretty much, I think, almost every time, was go to the bathroom. I just kept feeling like I had to go to the bathroom, so I just went in there, very frequently, and they were different. They would be shorter when I went to the bathroom, and then I'd come back, and I'd have one standing up, because I, would have one before I got back to bed, and then they started spacing out again more. And I really wanted to go back to sleep, but it was 3 in the morning and I was tired. So they spaced out a little tiny bit, like they got to 6 minutes apart. And we thought, okay, they're spacing out, they're going away. So Barry went and got his birth partner book. And Barry's saying to me, this is just pre-labor. This isn't real labor, because look, they're spacing out, and they haven't hit a minute long yet, and they're not that serious. And I was feeling like they weren't that serious anyway, but I wasn't sure. I kind of felt like maybe we should call Miriam, but it was 3 in the morning. All right, so I go to the bathroom and I have some show, and I said, now I think that this might really be labor. So Barry said, well, I think we should time 5 more contractions before we call Miriam. At 5 minutes apart, the midway. At 5 minutes apart, 5 contractions is a half hour, almost. So we waited another half hour. And by that time, I was, climbing up this headboard and, making sounds. And at some point, neither of us remembers what triggered it, but at some point we were like, go get Akiva to some kind of alternate care. So Barry and Akiva went to pack Akiva's bag. Contractions got a little harder, to the point where I was scared. I was worried that I was going to scare Akiva with the sounds I was making. They were still fine, but, And then, what was the question? At some point, I said something to Barry like, I wish you weren't going. I wish you could stay, or something like that. But no, that couldn't have been the question. Anyway, at some point Barry said to me, "Do you think you could do this by yourself? Do you want to do this by yourself for another?" "Oh yeah, I wish you could stay. I wish Akiva could stay." And Barry said, "Well, that would mean you basically doing these contractions by yourself, because I would have to be in the other room playing, taking care of Akiva. Do you think would you rather do that?" And I was like, "No, I'd rather you go for a while and come back and be with me." Little did I know. So he leaves, and the contractions are harder and harder. And I keep going, I went to the bathroom, I think, one more time. I came back, and then, I had a few more contractions, and they were getting very serious. I was making some very interesting noises that were a little unexpected. And I probably should have really thought that it was labor by then. But, this whole time I'm thinking, it's the very beginning of February. I mean, it's 2 weeks early. This can't really be labor, and this is not what I planned. This is going to ruin my summer plans. I'm going to have to go back to work in the beginning of August. And I was worried, is she going to be too early? And all this stuff. So, but, things were progressing, and there was nothing that certainly I could do. So I had a few more contractions, and I decided that I needed to go to the bathroom. So I went to the bathroom, and it was funny because I had just gone to the bathroom a second before, but when I had the contractions, I really felt a lot of pressure, like I really needed to pee. And then the contractions were really serious in there. And then I was thinking, I wish I could go to the hospital and get drugs. What did I get myself into? This is so intense. I can't believe Barry's not here. Like, all these thoughts were going through my head. The thoughts that I have, trained myself to think. If I'm thinking this, it must mean I'm in transition. But I was like, how could I be in transition? I've been in labor for a half hour here. I mean, it's been such a short time. And I was also expecting transition contractions to be a lot harder. I was expecting them to be like the Pitocin contractions that I had when I gave birth to Akiva. So, and they certainly weren't even about a quarter of that hard. Although they were they were hard. I thought I was leaning on the towel rack in the bathroom during them. And, I couldn't find a comfortable position anymore. The earlier ones, it was I'd get on my hands and knees and I would feel so much better. Or, I would I would stand up and I would feel so much better. But these ones, nothing I did was making it, it was making a difference. I had to move or do something, but it wasn't making me feel better. They were still ending, but they were very, very close together now. There was very little room between them. And there wasn't a real serious, complete rest in between them. And I was leaning on the towel rack, and I thought I was going to rip it off the wall. I had been worried about that, previously, because I thought I could see myself, having contractions in there, and it would be the perfect thing to lean on. Anyway, and then suddenly I felt my body give a push.